Welcome to the Blur channel, everybody. Today I'm going to be starting a new segment that I'm going to run for a little bit of time. It's going to be called Where the DCEU Could Have Been. The reason why I'm starting this is because we all know the DCEU has pretty much been a flop. In the box office, everywhere, critically reviewed, most of it has just not been connecting with people. And I believe it's had some really good moments, but they failed to do what the MCU did, and that is take their time. And now when Flash comes out in June 14th of this year, everything's going to reset and it's going to allow James Gunn to fully take control and implement his new vision for the DCU. Which I gotta say, I'm kind of excited about, but I know they're pretty much gonna have to scrap and start all over, so it's kind of hard for me to get really excited about what James Gunn is gonna do. And the projects that he's announced, none of them have really filled me with excitement, but either way, the DCEU is still set to release 4 movies this year. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which was a huge box office flop. The Flash, like I said, that's coming out on June 14th. Blue Beetle, coming out in August, which actually looks like it'll be pretty fun, pretty good. And then Aquaman and the Last Kingdom is supposed to come out at the end of this year, but all of the screening tests and things, people were walking out, they say that is terrible, which is sad because I think Aquaman is one of the best movies of the DCEU, and that's not saying much. So what I decided to do is reflect on, we're in 2023. Technically, the DCEU started 10 years ago with Man of Steel. So the DCEU could have been where Marvel was in 2018, releasing Infinity War, had they just taken their time, made sure the projects made sense and were cohesive, and they didn't. They kind of rushed into everything, and then they took so much time between Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman 2, it was just a huge convoluted mess. So what I want to do, I'm going to talk about where the DCEU could have been if we're in 2023, if Man of Steel kicked off the DCEU universe, and where each movie would be. And I'm going to do it movie by movie. I'm going to try to post this about 3 times a week, and then we're going to get involved of talking about where do I think the DCEU could have been had they relaxed a little bit, or maybe if I was the CEO, just for fun. So we're going to start this segment with the Man of Steel. Again, we're assuming that Man of Steel's, this is after the Avengers has just come out. The DCEU is like, okay, look, we got all these great characters. We can do the exact same thing Marvel did, but we'll use our characters, right? And we're going to take our time like Marvel, and we're going to build something so that way when they're coming onto their hype, the hype after Avengers was really the perfect time to start your own universe, because Marvel was building up, but they had the huge team up, and then now it's time to see some new superheroes like the DCEU. So I'm starting with Man of Steel. And largely, I did not think this movie was bad. I thought it was actually a great starting off point. And I really would have kept most of the plot line and the scenes the same. The way the movie started off with Zod talking to Kal-El's father while Krypton was being destroyed all around them, and then they get stuck in the Phantom Zone. They get exiled in the Phantom Zone while Krypton is destroyed, and then they send little baby Kal-El off to Earth. Then they showed Clark Kent kind of growing up in Smallville with his adoptive parents. They could really build that relationship between him and Martha, because that's going to play out in later movies and not the way that you're thinking and not the way that it actually did. But anyway, a lot of it is the same. I really like how they depicted the powers of Zod and his crew when they escaped the Phantom Zone, and the way that they were really powerful and Clark Kent still hadn't really got a grasp on his powers. So to me, the only addition that I would have had in this movie, and I don't think it would have been too much, instead of having this military operation that was kind of trying to help Superman contain the chaos and figure out who Superman was, I would have had the D.E.O. And that would have been like a sub-military operation for extraterrestrial threats. Now, the reason why I say that, part of this is inspired by Supergirl, because Hank Henshaw in Supergirl is the director of the DEO, but after he's defeated by Martian Manhunter, John Jones, Martian Manhunter, takes over his persona, and Hank Henshaw gets stuck with Cadmus. So in this situation, we wouldn't know any of that yet, but basically, John Jones, Martian Manhunter, would be playing Hank Henshaw instead of the Colonel, Henry Lennox. I would have used Hank Henshaw. Could be the same actor, just a different role. And when the battle in Smallville between Superman and those forces on Zod's ship, Martian Manhunter would have randomly appeared and helped fight them because he has some of the same powers, at least to go against them. So it would help Superman to have an ally in this movie at that point. So we as the audience wouldn't know that Martian Manhunter is actually Hank Henshaw until we get to the very end of the movie. But throughout the movie, basically the same plot line. Zod's trying to terraform the Earth and create a new Krypton, and Superman has to stop him, but he's getting help from John Jones, Martian Manhunter, who's pretending to be Hank Henshaw. And then at the very end, instead of killing Zod like he does in the movie, I would have had Superman contemplating whether he should kill Zod, and Martian Manhunter is the one, Hank Henshaw is the one that gives him an idea to put him in a red sun cell, a cell that exhibits red sun rays. so that way Zod won't have his powers. And John Jones would know this because Hank Henshaw would know this because he's actually John Jones and he's been around for hundreds of years, so he's acquired a lot of knowledge. So Superman's like, how do you know this? And he's like, the director of, this is our extraterrestrial department, so this is why. So at the end of the movie, Superman's gonna ask, Martian Manhunter, like, where if you, like, you're the most powerful person I've ever met on Earth, part of their iconic quote, and be like, who are you? Where are you from? And Martian Manhunter is just gonna tell him, where I'm from is not important, but I do know this. The age of heroes has begun. It's kind of like a nod off to the next movies. After Superman flies away, Martian Manhunter would turn back into Hank Henshaw, and that's when we, the audience, would find out. We might have, like, been guessing it, but that's when we would really find out, like, oh, they're the same person. One of his privates is gonna tell him, hey, we just found a pod over where Zod's ships crashed when it came from the Phantom Zone. Hint nod to the sequel, which would be Girl of Steel. But that would end this film for right now, and then we would go to the end credit scene where Zod has made bail and he's brought to Lex Luthor's yacht. But he still doesn't have full powers yet because he's still feeling the effects of the red sun radiation. So then Lex Luthor would have this intense conversation with him and be like, what do you consider yourself? And he's going to be like, I'm Krypton's savior. I came to save my people, all that stuff. And Lex Luthor would be like, some people look at you, Zod, but they'd rather call you a god. Some people look at this new Superman, a god. And Zod's going to be like, so what if we are? And he's going to be like, we don't need them. And then Lex Luthor is going to shoot Zod with a kryptonite bullet. And then he's going to be like, it works. And that's the end credit scene, setting up Lex Luthor. So like I said, not a whole lot of changes for Man of Steel, but I remember when I went in the theater to watch it, I was not expecting this movie to turn into a whole universe. It just seemed like it was a very standalone project, and that's it. There were no hints, no ties, no guesses that there was anything else coming. And like, if you look at Iron Man that kicked off, Fury straight up said, I want to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. So you knew Avengers was coming. And we didn't necessarily have to get a nod to the Justice League or anything like that, but just something to let us know something else was coming. Marvel was very big on letting us know that their sequels are coming, and doing something like this I think would have helped us know, like, oh, DC is planning something. Zack Snyder, I feel like, could have made this movie a little bit more enticing for us to really want to get involved into anything coming after. So like I said, that's the first edition of where the DCEU could have been. We're going to be doing this all the way until Flash comes out on June 14th. And like I said, I'm going to try to be posting about 3 times a week. So comment your thoughts below if you think this would have made a good movie, if you would have watched it, or if you just like the way they did it. Until next time, Blurds.